You're watching First Alert 7 News at 9 on the CW and live on YouTube with Lauren Munt and weather with Tom Tiefertiller.
You know, there's an old saying among lawyers, if you have the law on your side, pound on the law. If you have facts on your side, pound on the facts. Got nothing, just pound loudly. I'm a get her done kind of guy, and I'm going to get it done. So I ask for your vote for mayor of the city of Odessa. Thank you.
For the last 4 years, I did what I was asked to do, and that's to clean it up. The things that were happening in the 30 years, to be able to get rid of the sweet deals behind the doors, that has been done. We've cleaned the swamp, and I'm asking for 4 more years. November 5th, vote Javier Holman.
You just heard closing statements from both candidates for the position of Odessa City Mayor from tonight's debate. Good evening, and thanks for joining us here for First Alert 7 News at 9 on the CW. And thanks to those of you joining us on our First Alert 7 YouTube page. I'm Jay Hendricks. We start tonight talking about that election. Cal Hendrick and Javier Hoven took the stage tonight. They talked about issues surrounding infrastructure, city utilities, and why elections this year seem so divided. Of course, one topic discussed in depth was something we all have experienced with, the water outages and how they plan on fixing them.
We are addressing each and every one of us by providing $25 million to address close to 200 valves, $25 million that's going to go into 2 major projects to address the most, the lines that basically have been broken that has caused those breaks. So we're doing that right now, and they're completely funded without increasing any tax.
The answer is right here. Had a 5-year term, 10-year, and 25-year of improvements. That plan has been completely ignored. What I'd like to do, if elected mayor, is I'm going to update this plan, put it in service, and make it go forward.
They also spoke on transparency with the city and the news outlets and social media. They also talked about social issues that the city is targeting, like transgender bathrooms and abortion clinics.
I think social issues are not part of the city's business. The city provides water, roads, police, parks, fire rescue. It's not the city's business. State laws take care of everything. If somebody is interested in social issues, I would recommend they run for congressman or state representative or something that has an impact on social issues.
There is an abortion clinic in every zip code within Odessa in the United States, and this is through Plan B through your pharmacies. It exists. It is happening. This is the fight that's going on. We can't put our heads in the sand. This is critical for us to be able to address.
And of course, candidates were asked about internal city things like the mayor's office being ceremonial, qualifications for city manager, the turnover rate of employees, and the recent lost bond ratings.
In 100 years, Odessa was never late in filing an audit. So I don't know why it's so late now. We certainly lost our credit rating. We need to get it back. What do? You hire the right people to get the job done.
Once again, it was never lost. When you're basically saying you're lost, it was taken away, and that didn't happen. So the thing is, it's been taken care of. We have a AA rating. Once the next audit is going to be back, we'll be there at AAA. The thing is that this is municipal accounting. We had to do an internal audit to see where the budget was actually at, because the thing is, it was a mess. There was a semblance of the finance department that didn't really exist.
Candidates were also offered individual questions. The debates will continue this week, and next Thursday we will have the Midland City Council debates. Next Tuesday we will have the Midland School Board and the Midland County Commissioners debates. We will, of course, be there to moderate and bring you the recap. You can tune in to watch live at 7 p.m. on KWWT My 30 or on Basin PBS. We are just 3 weeks away from the general elections, which take place on Tuesday, November 5th, and the first day of early voting begins Monday, October 21st, and ends Friday, November 1st. Now, the only 2 ways to vote in an election are to go in person or to use a mail-in ballot. But to do either, you have to be registered to vote before the deadline about 1 month before the actual election. In preparation for voting season and the efforts to make sure the voting process remains secure, election officers are required by the state to go through verification processes.
We do that before every election to make sure that our equipment hasn't been tampered with, to make sure that our tabulating equipment is working the way it's supposed to be working.
There are a few dedicated elections employees, but most polling locations are staffed by volunteers, and the Midland County Election Administrator says volunteers are always needed, especially those that speak English and Spanish. More info on voter turnout, percentages, and polling location hours are up on our website, firstalert7.com. Time now to talk your weather forecast. Chief Meteorologist Tom Teever-Teller joins us. Not too bad out there right now, but some changes are still coming, right?
Yes, we're going to see that cold front roll in. In fact, it's knocking on the door right now across the Permian Basin. High temperatures today, well, we were on the hot side into the upper 80s to low 90s out there, if you can believe that. But we're going to see a significant change in our forecast for tomorrow. Again, the front has yet to make it through, but we are starting to see things cool off a little bit, all the way down to 68 now, up towards the Andrews area, 67 in Alpine, so some nice spots. As we take a look at the winds, we are starting to see that front start to nose in around La Mesa and over towards the Snyder area and Gale. That'll be moving off to the southwest, so we're going to see this front move in from northeast to southwest through the rest of the evening hours. And again, temperatures will cool off quite a bit all the way down into the upper 40s by the early morning hours. Wind chill values, well, they're going to be significant because we're going to see gusty northeast winds upwards to 30 miles an hour plus, so knocking wind chill values down into the upper 30s. Might need a light jacket early in the day.
Nearly a third of the surveillance cameras along the southern border are not working. That's according to an internal Border Patrol memo that shows the outages are leaving agents without a crucial tool. It's affecting about 150 of the 500 cameras perched on surveillance towers along the border. The Border Patrol memo blames a different federal agency for the problem, the Federal Aviation Administration. It is in charge of maintaining and repairing the cameras. While the agents are on the way, the memo shows Homeland Security is now considering getting a contractor to handle that workload. We now have new details on an investigation back here in West Texas. Texas Education Agency's investigation into third future schools within Midland ISD, Ector County ISD, and Austin ISD has been closed. You'll remember back on May 3rd, Future Schools was accused of diverting funds from Texas schools to Colorado schools. The TEA's findings concluded there were no violations and no merit to those allegations. In more education news, last week we told you about the Ector County ISD search for a firm that will help hire a new superintendent. Tonight, board members voted on that new firm. You'll remember back in August, Dr. Scott Murray announced his retirement as ECISD superintendent. Board President Chris Stanley said the discussions that the board had about hiring a firm last week was the, quote, hardest discussion, end quote, that the school board had had. We'll have the full details on what happened at tonight's meeting coming up on First Alert 7 News at 10. Today, Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center renamed one of its programs to the Nadine and Tom Craddock Physician Assistant Studies. In 2019, Representative Craddock helped get $20 million in state funding for Texas Tech, which is helping build a new state-of-the-art facility. It will have a clinical training area and a gross autonomy lab.
The plan all along when we began to create the vision of what the growth of the physician assistant program would be was to also make sure that it was a collaborative space where we could train all types of healthcare professionals who really make up the healthcare team.
When the program launched in 1997, it started with just 45 students. Now that number has grown to 72, but it is a competitive program that gets more than 2,000 applicants annually. The goal is to increase the program's enrollment to 100 students, ultimately improving access to care in the Permian Basin.
A lot of the rural towns in this state and country have no doctors and have no PAs. And without PAs, much of the Permian Basin wouldn't be able to exist.
Our passion was we grow them here in our own community, and maybe then they stay here instead of going to the city.
The Craddock said they were humbled and honored to have their names be a part of the Texas Tech University Health Sciences Centers. Tonight, Medical Center Hospital hosted its second annual Wave of Light Memorial Service. That's an event dedicated to honoring and remembering infants and pregnancies lost too soon. The ceremony included candles, prayer, and a moment of silence to offer support to families and parents who have experienced this type of loss. The service was created to provide a space for the community to come together and support those affected by infant and pregnancy loss.
You know, even if it's been 5 years or 20 years since their loss, or maybe it was 2 days ago, we want them to know that there's support out there and that we're here to help if they need anything.
Parker estimates that the hospital's labor and delivery unit alone experiences around 10 to 12 losses each year, but that number only includes pregnancies that have reached 20 weeks or more. It doesn't account for earlier miscarriages, many of which occur in the ER.
It's very difficult because as a labor and delivery nurse, you know, our job is to bring babies into the world, and most of the time those are good days for families. Most of the time that's one of the happiest days of their life, and in situations like this, it's probably one of the worst.
The Wave of Light event was held at the MCH Center for Health and Wellness. If you were unable to attend, MCH staff encourages anyone who has experienced a loss to reach out. Staying in your health headlines, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, affects about 15.5 million adults. And now a new survey suggests the condition may be more common than previously thought. CBS's Christian Benavides has more.
For years, Allison Burke had trouble focusing and acting impulsive, but it wasn't until her daughter was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, that she realized she might have it too.
It was literally like lightning bulbs, just every 2 seconds were going off, and I kept thinking, well, this sounds so familiar.
She was diagnosed at 42 years old.
It was just so validating because I really thought my whole life up until that point that there was something wrong with me.
A new survey from the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center finds 25% of adults suspect they have undiagnosed ADHD.
Only 13% are actually talking to their physicians about it. So it sounds like there may be some self-diagnosis going on that can impede getting the appropriate treatment.
Psychologist Justin Bartarian says diagnosing adults can be difficult because symptoms can be similar to mental health conditions like anxiety and depression, which is why it is critical to talk to your doctor.
The most effective treatment for ADHD is stimulant medications. And then in addition to that, cognitive behavioral therapy focused on executive functioning skills, such as time management, planning, organization.
Allison says it's not perfect, but tools like medication and to-do lists are helping her.
The quietness of my mind has helped me to not be spinning my gears all the time as much. And it's kind of allowed a space for me to feel more confident in tackling things.
Allison hopes sharing her story reduces the stigma around the disorder. Christian Benavides, CBS News.
Coming up, a Supreme Court case with huge consequences for veterans, how a ruling could impact if and how they get benefits. And a reminder that First Alert 7 is partnering with the West Texas Food Bank to help resupply the Manna Food Bank in Asheville, North Carolina that was destroyed in Hurricane Helene. You can see a list of things to be donated, and you can drop that off at either of the West Texas Food Bank locations or here at the First Alert 7 studios in Music City Mall. Veteran benefits are front and center of a consequential Supreme Court case this week. As Molly Martinez reports, it revolves around PTSD, an invisible injury that can often be hard to prove.
According to the Department of Veterans Affairs, there are about 1 million backlogged disability cases as of June 2024. Each one of those cases is reviewed by a processor who determines whether or not that veteran is entitled to a payout. Now, 2 of those cases revolving around PTSD made it all the way to the Supreme Court. Injuries sustained on the battlefield aren't always visible. According to the Veterans Administration, in 2021, about 11% of veterans were diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. By some VA estimations, 30% of Vietnam War veterans experienced PTSD.
There is still a stigma in our society to kind of acknowledge that you are dealing with mental health problems.
Attorneys Mel Bostwick and Renee Burbank have worked on this week's Supreme Court case. It centers around 2 veterans who say they suffer with PTSD stemming from their service, but were denied benefits.
They have to prove that they have this disability and that it's caused by service. And that can be really difficult.
Unlike criminal law, which operates under beyond a reasonable doubt, or civil law, which goes by preponderance of the evidence, veterans law uses something called benefit of the doubt.
When there's evidence on both sides, and it's roughly equal, the tie goes to the veteran.
That means if there's any question as to the legitimacy of the claim, the veteran should still get the payout. Attorney Katie Becker says this case throws that system into question.
Whatever this decision is, it's going to have huge ramifications.
Oral arguments in this case will be heard Wednesday, with a decision expected by June. At the Supreme Court, I'm Molly Martinez.
Well, we're waiting on that cold front to roll in. Should be any minute now, as it is starting to move in across the northern Permian Basin. Chillier conditions behind it that we'll talk about coming up next.
Now, from the First Alert 7 Weather Center, here's Chief Meteorologist Tom Tiefertiller.
Well, the cold front is starting to move in across parts of the northern Permian Basin. Excuse me, as we are looking at the weather makers right now, seeing this big upper level low back here across the northeast U.S. into the Great Lakes area. That is dropping that front down, and it's moving kind of an odd direction. It's called a backdoor front as it moves northeast to southwest across the area. There's also a developing trough of low pressure that after this front, we're going to start to see some clouds from and maybe even a couple of rain showers into the forecast as we move in towards the weekend, but not expecting a big washout, not expecting a lot of thunderstorms out of this, as the main push with this is going to be further off to our north. Now, right now across the state, well, we have that front starting to roll down across portions of the South Plains into central Texas right now. You can see it kind of in this position here where we're seeing cooler conditions behind it. Temperatures right now, we'll take a look at those. We're at 58 in Amarillo, 68 in Lubbock, and right at 75 again across the Permian Basin. So that front has a little umph to it. So even though the wind shift to the east to northeast is going to happen, the cooler air is about 2 to 3 hours away, but we'll definitely feel it first thing in the morning. Now, not a lot of fanfare with the front other than the wind. Not a lot of cloud cover is what I'm trying to say across the area. Now, we'll see that disturbance, though. That whole upper level trough move in with more clouds across parts of the mountain areas southeast of Mexico later tomorrow into early Thursday, I should say, and we'll see a few showers with it moving across the area into Thursday night. But overall, though, again, a lot of it's going to be in the higher mountain areas coming up over the next 24 hours. In the morning, grab a jacket because we're going to have wind chills early on. This is about going to happen about 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Wind chills into the upper 30s first thing in the morning, so it's going to be a little chilly out there as actual temperatures drop down into the upper 40s first thing in the morning. So expecting a cooler morning out there and a milder afternoon, definitely with the upper 60s and plenty of breeze out of the northeast. Will be rather gusty and touch chilly as we'll see temperatures stay into the lower 70s. Those rain chances increasing about 20% coming up for the weekend.
Up next here at 9, the government is investigating a deadly listeria outbreak. We have the latest details up next. Federal officials are taking a closer look at how U.S. Agriculture Department and state inspectors handled the deadly listeria outbreak at Boar's Head Deli Meat Plant in Virginia. The plant was inspected under a program that allows state inspectors to act on behalf of the federal agency. At least 10 people died and nearly 50 were hospitalized after a listeria outbreak linked to Boar's Head Deli Meats, including liverwurst.
These deaths and hospitalizations were preventable, and they should have been prevented. I want to get to the bottom of why the Boar's Head plant was permitted to continue operating in the face of repeated violations, 84 separate instances of non-compliance involving mildew, mold, insects, holes in walls, puddles of blood.
The plant is now closed and Boar's Head no longer produces liverwurst anywhere.
Well, before we go, I want to check that forecast again. The front's on the way. Already seeing an east wind out there, and we're going to see it kick up quite a bit overnight tonight. Watch out for some areas of blowing dust, and then cooler temperatures will be down into the upper 40s first thing in the morning,
Whoa.
Jay. Wind chill values, upper 30s.
Going to be chilly.
It's going to be a little chilly for your commute to work and school. And tomorrow afternoon, only up to 68 degrees, so it's going to be a welcome change. And finally, a little fall weather.
Now, we're not going to get any rain till possibly later in the weekend.
Yeah, it looks like a couple of showers on the way. Maybe see one or two affecting area football games in the mountain areas on Friday.
Okay.
Better chance, I think, is going to be Saturday and Sunday, and even it's going to be a small chance at 20%.
20%. Okay. Otherwise, just get ready for that cooler weather. What a nice break we're going to see. That's good news to hear. Thanks for joining us here at 9. We have more news coming up tonight on First Alert 7 News at 10.